Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. I have another 1v1 match for you guys today. I'm playing as Duerker's horse, and if anybody actually gets that reference, I'll be very, very impressed. But I'm playing against Fëanor, and you guys will have just seen him kick my ass on Hell in a Very Small Place, and we've been having a bunch of games lately. For a couple of months we went pretty 50-50, but I think it was a lot of Fëanor sort of experimenting with different decks and different openers, and me playing my competitive decks and openers, and so we've been having a really tough series, well, for me anyway, where I'm sort of playing stuff that's new. So we're on plunging. I have Commonwealth on spec, and I have a guest with me today as well. Haymaker here with us in the recording. Want to introduce yourself and sort of let me know what you think as the opener gets underway.
Hey. Now I quite like a Foxtrot heavy opener for Commonwealth style decks. As you know, I'm a pretty big fan of Commonwealth Moto, and on this map, I'm a particularly big fan of a Foxtrot heavy opener with Wombats and Vickers and your...
It ends up feeling weird to me oftentimes because it seems to me that the other side of the map has a much easier time getting into Bravo than I ever do getting into Foxtrot. So right there, we actually did have some small amount of combat here, but Fëanor's open for Bravo, I've opened for Foxtrot, and I mean, look at that. I'm not even there with my motorized stuff. He's nearly there with his motorized stuff. There's a lot right away.
I think it's a timing issue. Bravo is a tough defend. You can do it, but I think it's typically best to just focus on the offense on this map rather than overly focus on the defense, because this map is really swingy with the offense.
Yeah, I guess
it's really difficult to get to a position because these two one pointers are really long really long arrival time, so they are heavily weighted to each side in the opener at least.
Yeah, I mean, the best I could do on this side was pull my Royal Marines back and just have them in that little bit of town before Bravo, and they'll get a couple of kills, but this was actually going really well. So Commandos 90, killing Lecha, killing Pruskonichi, and a Harrier GR7 coming out just to join the party. A little bit of overkill, probably didn't need it there.
But it might have been a little bit of an overinvestment, but it's not a terrible one because it lets you get an idea of their AA, and at the early start of the game, planes are going to be at their most efficient because you're more likely to see a lot of helicopter AA rather than anti-plane dedicated.
Yeah, and I mean, right now I need that efficiency because this is a pretty thin spread. I have some Rover Wombats, I have a Wolverine over here, a Bell. Not really a lot of firepower on that wide side of Delta.
So speaking of Wombats, though, once you've taken Foxtrot, typically, the goal is to then use your spam and fast assets to then infiltrate into Alpha. But since you've taken a lot of combat losses there, you're incapable of capitalizing on that.
Yeah, I mean, I still have the two Vickers, but not a lot of things in front of them. I don't really have any recon, and like, the M96 Vidra is no joke. That thing has a really high AP missile.
But those Wombats did arrive in perfect time to help defend your two-pointer. So that was a good response.
Yeah. I mean, this is the sort of thing where, I mean, you and I make different gameplay decisions, that much is very clear, but that's that sort of defensive move that I'll tend to favor over pressing the advantage. And, I mean, here, Fëanor has pressed the advantage against me, that's why he has BVPs coming in, Mex Nirvana coming in, we got some nice pickups in Proletary and BVPs in the open, but, I mean, look at this, he has infantry coming in, I have nothing here or on the way, right? Like, how am I supposed to address that? If I push up this way into Alpha, I mean, it doesn't save my two-pointer.
It does if you have all of your new... It's not about what you had purchased previously, the Wombats and Delta. It's about force preservation in your Foxtrot assaults. Because these rovers that you currently have coming in, and the Lynx H7, and the Commandos that are coming in, should be enough to hold the line in Delta until more reinforcements arrive. Because as it is now, your Chally 1 Mark II sort of not doing much.
Well, I don't think that's entirely fair. He actually had just come up here and killed a recon tank and a BVP, and he's retreating from that, so it was a little bit of a clearing operation there. This thing has gotten, I mean, it's only fired 5 shots, but a lot of those were hits, and 19 AP power will deal with recon tanks pretty well. Like, you can see it's not there anymore. This Oslov wouldn't be getting in.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the change they did to the 1 Mark II a couple years back.
Yeah, where they dropped its price. I like it as well, but on the other hand, it does make the 1 Mark 1 feel a little bit underperforming for 10 points less. Oh man, it's bad.
Oof.
But I mean, I
Now, the
have the
Lynx
Milan
H7 is a
here.
you got the Milan in, and the Lynx H7 is a powerful tool, but sometimes it's a bit risky. However,
split.
the GR7, oh, that's a nice split. Okay, 3 into the Bidra and 1 into the Bov, and you get the Bov kill. Nice.
Yeah, that was. I mean, honestly, if it couldn't split, I think the GR7 would be a little bit subpar. But as it is, I think the split really makes it because you can. Even with all 4 missiles, it is a little bit unreliable. He's going after my CB, by the way. That's what that L15M's doing. But I think if you can split and multi-target and take out a couple of medium or soft targets in a single run, I think that's where you get most of your value. Look at that
Now, over
second
here
bomber.
in Foxtrot, in low-density gaming, you have Commandos 90 absolutely rinsing the field of these Lekka Pechota.
Yeah, TH495 support as well, and they've been firing for most of the engagement, so it's not really symmetrical. But it very much was a nice hold.
This is why you pay for Commandos.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're only 20 points too. It's not like they're not 15-point shocks, but they're really, really solid 20-point shocks. M96. This was a little greedy. I just wanted to clear this out, and I figured it's a 25-point vehicle. I have 20-point shocks. If I lose one to that autocannon, that's still worth it. We didn't even lose one. We lost half of one of those Commandos 90. I'm replacing the ATGM with another Lynx. Jelly 1 Mark II is rotating. Now I feel pretty confident holding this, and I think safe to say we're decently up on trading. But I don't know, this is something I wanted to ask you about as well. You've seen a fair number of the games between me and Fenor, and
yes,
generally he attacks me really, really hard. And it's just kind of interesting because I think he's largely known to be a slower defensive player, but he attacks me ruthlessly. It's just a little bit goofy. Wolverines with the double tap. I wonder why that is.
I think it's because A, you tend to play a lot of mech, and Fenor tends to play a lot of unspec, and therefore, in the you versus Fenor matchup, 9 times out of 10, it's better for him to be aggressive early on, because otherwise, you playing Scandi mech or some other mech deck is going to then capitalize over the long term, unless Fenor is that aggressive.
So you're saying he's trying to avoid getting into the grind with me by going for early decisive combat?
Yes.
Fair enough. That Harry GR7, by the way, is completely drunk. I clicked on the T55 and it was just like, nah, let's circle. But
Air Micro is sometimes a bit weird.
Also no split. I was very sad.
I thought that was split.
Me too.
That was a weird bomb drop pattern. Huh.
I thought it was split during the match. I was assuming they're going, oh great, we're going to get the T55, and we don't.
Had you noticed that the drug had snuck into the building at this point?
Yeah, no? I did see it. I was hoping that my THs would have enough burst damage to deal with it. But I also didn't want to approach with the Pathfinders until this Milan was in to kill a T55, because, I mean, there's no way they're making it across that stretch that close to a T55.
So, okay. Now, I know that you used to be notorious for sneaky gameplay.
I'm not anymore, not really.
Not anymore, but does the thought ever come to mind on this side of the map to use that highway?
So it does.
Far left.
But I'll tell you why I stopped being so sneaky. When I played against people who are just truly better than me, and I mean Ricky Bobby style, no, I want to lose to someone truly better than me, like that whole thing. I wasn't able to sneak, because if I snuck, I would need those points in the main combat, and I'd just lose that much faster. And they were really good at dealing with the sneak, because they've dealt with that from people who sneak and cheese often and don't have their fundamentals every time they play ranked. By the way, Lynx H7 fire pause misses horribly.
Lynx H7 is sometimes it's a bit too accurate.
Well, I had a 50-50 on which building they'd actually be in, and yeah, they were in the other one, so the Lynx H7 didn't kill shit. A little bit unfortunate.
Is what it is.
Yeah. This was actually really nice, the Milan somehow having line of sight here. It doesn't land, but it does force Fenor to move. And this is the thing about the Foxtrot push. Usually if you can fight favorably over this town, you just win. And it's the damnedest thing, I don't really know why that is. Like, you think, well, I guess we saw a little bit of the follow-up pressure, maybe it's just difficult, or maybe people don't practice it very often, but every single time I get into here, even when you and I were playing, when I get into here, you just make it your mission to push me out. And it's all-consuming. Like, even at the expense of pushing into the two-pointer, which is usually everyone's all-consuming, this is where I'm gonna go, right? I don't know why that is.
I wonder if it's because it looks like an assailable town, like visually, if you're just looking at it. Because you have the tree line real close by. You have other nearby buildings that you can bound to take first. You have an open approach that is cut off by a ridge line, so it's like a safe approach. However, I think everything is just perfectly zoned wrong. That it makes it actually a pretty difficult push, right? So if you have Eric squads in the town, I think that range, or ATGM squads in the town, the range is real perfect to be able to hit any fire support asset that's actually able to participate in the fight.
Yeah, that's fair. Plus, I mean, there's a number of angles here too. Like, if I get up here, or even if I have, like, people will smoke this off when they attack sometimes, because otherwise you get something here, and it can shoot right through and onto the ramp. So if you aren't aware that you have line of sight onto the ramp from that spot, use it, because you do, and it's so devastating.
The other deceiving aspect is the forest push side, because you might have the thought, well, if I can't push out in the open, I might smoke from forest side and sneak units in a counter push. However, A, that's very long, and B, all your approach asset or all your approach vectors into Foxtrot from the forest are all very narrow and very exposed to a lot of different lines of fire.
Yeah, that's fair. Another thing that we haven't mentioned so far is the tick is 187 to 2. I capped Foxtrot a while ago, and Bravo has not been capped. And you might look at that and think it's a little bit strange, because, I mean, Fëanor is one of the best 1 versus 1 ranked players that's currently active. And, I mean, he's just letting me tick +1, but it's probably a calculated decision to focus those points on clearing up Foxtrot before I had time to consolidate. That would be my guess for it. And this, oh my goodness, I don't know why I wanted to Harrier GR7 this so early, but we get hit, we get crit, and all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, Fëanor has rotated his push. He's no longer dealing with Foxtrot, he has gone over to the 2-pointer, and it makes complete sense. When looking at that tick, the only real way for him to get into it quickly is to 1, cap Bravo, and 2, oh, this was dirty. Yep.
Oh, you fire paused his AA position.
Yep, and I split. I got 1 missile in here and 3 missiles in there. And we killed it.
Fantastic.
Killed the Nevamit. But if he caps Bravo, he still needs to make up a lot of tick, 200 points. And so he kind of needs to counter cap my Delta zone to win, and that's a very comfortable place to be oftentimes. Not because this fight is easy. It's not. This is colloquial bad side of plunging for a reason, but because I tend to enjoy situations where my opponent has to maintain a position in order to win. It gives me the flexibility to do my counterattack basically whenever I please, and if it gets close, yeah, you lose time on that, you have to have some urgency, and it can turn a little bit ugly, but generally I think it's favorable until the score gets close. And if you think about it too, if he goes in and countercaps right here, and I can clear that out and kill the CV, that's free points for me. Now he's down on trading even more and hasn't accomplished his goal. Of course, the Lieutenant General won't always cap too early, but sometimes people do, and you can really take advantage of it. And now I'm probing a little bit, but look at this. ATGM. Yeah. I got a little bit lucky there, but I don't know. I didn't really have the recon available.
With the death of the Pathfinders, it's this Scamiter is not going to be capable of spotting.
I thought I could go farther up with the Pathfinders than I could, because I just got rolled by the BVP autocannon before I had my Challenger in place to kill it, so a little bit mistiming there, but we're replacing it. We have Milan 2 over here that probably should be up in this section, but I don't know. I was pretty happy with Territorial's Commando's Milan to hold this. especially with the early warning from these vehicles. So, I mean,
And has a thought in your mind come up during this match to attempt a Bravo push or
No.
a probe, or is it just is your thoughts full Delta defense and
So
Foxtrot defense?
it was full defense because there's only a Durug and some Lecha here, but there's also the Hera, there's also um, there's the
Well, you have no idea what's there.
right, and so there could have been a lot more, and you have to have some ability to know what your opponent has. But in order to attack even that small composition, I would have needed at least one of my tanks to be there. That means I'm either not probing up on this side, or I don't have a tank for defense on this side, or I don't have my units where I think they're going to be needed, which is right here. Because again, going to my defensive usually mindset, I'm not looking for where I can shift to rotate and push usually, sometimes, but not always. Instead, I'm looking at, okay, if this was successful, have I overinvested here? The answer is usually yes. And where do I need to be ready to defend next? And that's the thinking you can see going on right now, where I'm getting my points not to try and spread the field into Bravo, not to rotate the excess out of this section, and there is excess. This Challenger 1 Mark II should have been rotated. There's not a ton of excess. I actually probably should have had an infantry unit right around here, but I think you probably get the point with that. Oh, Prusunichi. So what would you have done differently at this point?
Well, as you know, I'm a bit more of a moto player. I probably would have consolidated my assets in Foxtrot, gone to a bare minimum skeleton defense, and then rotated all of those assets in all of the heavy assets to Delta. Probably pull those Wolverines over to where that Scimitar is. On defense, pull that in closer to Delta, and I would have actually been looking to amass a Wombat and motorized push down that main road into the side of Bravo.
Into the side of Bravo, so going like this way?
No,
going this
further
way?
left. Past, yeah, so no.
Oh,
down
I
that
see, I
main
see.
road.
So you go
down
this
the
way.
MS road, past there, and then smoke that line, because I would have expected ATGMs at this point, since there has been no probe into Bravo, to be positioned to try and capitalize
So you
on
wouldn't
a
want to get
frontal
zoned
assault.
out. That makes sense. That makes
Exactly.
sense. On the other hand, this did go pretty well for me. I pushed back a couple of decently heavy tanks. We killed a fair number of units. Now, I lost an F3 to a Neva M1T because reasons. Not exactly good control among them, but that was a very proactive defense, right? I saw he was building up here. We went and we got some kills.
Your Delta, your 2-pointer CV placement has really paid off, because Fëanor this entire game has been trying to go for your 2-pointer CV.
Yeah.
The L15s, or at the start, now heavy arty. Do you tend to rotate your CV placements, or do you tend to pre-think about what are my good CV placements for these maps for my 2-pointers, or do you just on the fly just pick a random location?
Well, so it's not random. It's mostly decided based off of the type, and I do some rotation. So just to talk about that briefly, this Oslov C, so this deck has Oslov Cs and it has Command Chieftains. I don't have infantry CVs here, so I don't necessarily want to go somewhere in the towns. I have some places. This is actually Blue Forest. That's Blue Forest. So is this. So there are places you can hide it. But thinking about the Oslov C in particular, this is a 2 front, 2 side, 1 back, 1 top. If I get bombing or arty, it's going to die decently quickly, even with 10 strength, and these tend to draw the most fire. So I figured, okay, well, where am I going to be spending most of my points in this zone? And usually for me, that's on this side of it. So I decided that here was an okay place for right now. Now, that's not always the case. And if I start getting pushed back a little bit more into my 2-pointer, I'll move it. Because when you get pushed back and you're fighting over here, many people will start artying here and here, because those are the sort of the places where you can gather to get back into the woods.
Now, with low armor, fast CVs, do you take into consideration proximity to MSRs, so that they can fast move away from artillery fire or snipes, or is that
really
never a consideration?
It's not that it's not important. I tend to find that usually I'm either dead or fine by the time the first volley finishes. And if I'm fine, then clearly I don't care. By the way, ATGM here has just been ripping me to shreds, and this Wolverine rotation was a little greedy. But I tend to find that proximity to a fast move doesn't tend to save me. And because it doesn't tend to save me, I don't tend to necessarily care about it. Now that was a bit more scary. But actually, this is interesting. Look at this. This is exactly... This may either prove or disprove my point right here. Because look at that. Nope, no damage. One more coming in. And there, we're stunned. We've taken 3. But there's not all that much, if anything, left in the volley. There's no fires, so I'm fine. And even if there was a fire, I would move before it killed me. That's not always the case, but... like, he would have had to be pretty dead on. And that's with the Nora B from Entente as well, which is a decently good arty piece. It's basically it's a French César clone, isn't it?
I believe so. I'm not super confident on artillery pieces, but
I think it's the same thing. And I mean, it's not like it's not getting any value. That pickup on the Wolverines is, you know, it doesn't have to be a lot, and it doesn't have to be all at once for arty to get its value back. So,
quick question: when you're looking at Delta, you're looking to defend Delta, what is your positional placement for infantry strategy? Do you tend to have like a QRF style where you'll have better shocks and elites ready to push into to support your lines? Do you think you tend to, because it seems that you have just all of your infantry assets are just as pickets on the front.
yeah,
And then
I
you
have a
have your
bad
tallies
habit
as a response force.
That is how it's currently set out, and it's a bad habit. I tend to lose a fair number more shocks and elites than I should because I do that. It's actually something Mint Jellyman picked on me for, rightly so, back when he was teaching me for the Adopt a Noob tournament, and I do it less, but I still sometimes do it, especially with decks I'm not comfortable with. So what you're seeing right now is I don't really know the infantry performance of this deck very well, and cannon rifles usually underperform in my opinion. That combined with the ability of good AT to get nice picks in this position, and I'm risking shocks and elites a little bit more than I should, because I mean, we saw the impact of that Law 80. The T-72's down 4 strength right there, so that could throw an even tank engagement into a win. And it's a very tempting reason to have these guys forward. Now I should be drawing them back, and I should have Canadian rifles here to replace them while they're damaged, but I didn't, and I also pulled back a little bit too far, or we could have picked up that Spatbov. But I mean, the location where Feanor's concentrated his forces is pretty obvious right now. Anyway,
now another interesting decision with this deck that you're playing in particular is the lack of supply and the fobless nature of it.
Yeah. So,
and
you
are
know,
you feeling that at this point in the game?
No.
Typically, or do you tend to find that? What are the big reasons that you tend to find that supply is not nearly as much of an issue with this style deck?
So, first off, I don't normally play Commonwealth unspec. Second, this is a weird deck on purpose. I've been playing decks with various challenges. The one for this deck is that it has a 3-card Logi tab, 2 CVs, and a single card of Munkat 1 6x6s. No fob. And generally, Commonwealth is thought of as a slow, supply-intensive deck, right? And I think that's sort of where your question is going. And I don't really feel it right now because I've been able to avoid a ton of damage on tanks. I haven't really needed to heal much very often. I mean, they're damaged right now, but they haven't been damaged often. And I'm not supplying a lot of other things. And sometimes that means that you're accepting the unit is just going to die, and you have to deal with that. By the way, T-track there, perfect. But I don't know, I tend to find that even with the fob, I don't really use a lot of it unless I'm building a deck that has a lot of particular heavy arty.
So this question circles back to your previous question of why of defensive play. I believe that, in fact, playing defensively. Oh, this is going to be a nice pick. That playing defensively ultimately is what is allowing this low supply usage, because you're not aggressively taking engagements, you're not risking more damage to take position, you are taking a points lead and sitting on it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I definitely believe that. It means that I can afford symmetrical engagements that I tip in my favor with the points that I've already traded well. And then I can do things like this, where territorials... I mean, there's too many territorials here. Half as many would have served just as good of a job to hold, while the AS-90 just says, okay, well, sorry, you don't have line infantry anymore. And that's a pretty low supply tactic. This is the first resupply I've done for the AS-90. And to be fair, this I don't think would get me through to the end of the game well. But that problem wouldn't really hit for another 5 or 6 minutes probably. So even with this style of play, I think it would have been an issue if the game had gone a little bit longer. Which is the mark of a not robust deck, right? It's a strategy or a deck choice that runs out, that doesn't really have the steam to go the whole way. This was goofy, by the way. In case you haven't really ever done this, or anyone watching hasn't really ever done this, split your IFVs and just right-click behind an enemy CV tank, and preferably in multiple directions, but yeah, there's the stun. Now we're shooting side armor, and that's dead.
Medic scaling and side armor is nice.
Now it's dead.
Now it's dead.
And we get the spat bulbs behind it too. This is just brutal. That's actually why the game ends right there, and for an understandable reason, but I'm pretty sure we'll have another Fëanor win pretty soon.
It should be, yeah, I think getting another CV back into Delta at this point is a hard ask.
Yeah.
Especially since none of the Challies have died, and you now have a third coming up. Infantry can always be replaced.
Yeah. By the way, display bug right there. It should be showing 3, but showing 2. Trading, pretty good. Up 700 points, up a lot of conquest points. And, well, that's the match. So we got a little bit of temporary revenge against Fëanor, and I'll put up one of the many defeats he's inflicted on me since pretty soon. But, Haymaker, thanks for joining me. It was always a pleasure having you on here. And do you have any closing thoughts?
I just find the deck very interesting. And I'm always curious about weird and wacky deck combinations, so I find I always find replays with this particular one fun and enjoyable to comment on.
Yeah, well, we'll have another video for you guys real soon. Thank you all for hanging around.